Hello, my name is Jeannie Smith Bernstein. Welcome to my corner. I started writing by falling out of the sky, and I would like to read you the little story about that I published in Private Pilot magazine that launched my writing career. Once you learn how to capture emotion and put it on the page, it's not hard to do. This story appears in my new book, Skating on the Septic Tank, which is taken from my magazine columns. They're short stories, nonfiction, and this one is in chapter 12, titled A Bolt in the Blue. I didn't especially want to take flying lessons, but with a husband who insisted on learning and two precious babies in the sky with us, I very much wanted to know how to land. Maybe because I had a lifelong penchant for going the wrong way, in the out, up the down, struggling with boxes rather than open other end. Passive aggressive, my cousin said. As the lone female in my 1974 ground school class, I tolerated considerable posturing from male counterparts. Each man showed up the day I soloed, armed with scissors for the tradition of cutting off a new pilot's shirt. Thankfully, I had the foresight to wear two shirts. One cold February morning during my pre-flight inspection, a close visual check of the plane's exterior, I blew an insect out of the pitot tube lest it impede the stall alarm, and as I wiped off frost to check the oil, I realized the cotter pin that secured the oil flap door was missing. Without thinking twice, I used a bobby pin. If anything, it held the flap tighter than the cotter pin, but that elevated me to a new level of respect because the next burly man to pre-flight that plane refused to take it up when he found my bobby pin. Just over 5 feet tall, I knew from my first attempt that I couldn't see in front of the plane when I pulled up the nose and flared for landing. I learned to gauge distance from the runway by looking out the side window. I never bounced a landing that way, not one, while my testosterone-filled colleagues routinely plowed into the tarmac. I finished practice one afternoon to find 11 disgruntled men lined up against the fence with their instructor shouting, "See, that's how you do it." I suppressed a smile until I had taxied past them. My crusty flight instructor, Mac, adjusted teaching like I did learning. He had me flying over the Talladega racetrack, vacant in winter. Then he reached over and pulled the power. I was forced to learn how to slip the plane onto an infield for a touch and go. Quite fun and quite illegal. As my licensing exam approached, I practiced an FAA-approved cross-country course from my home field in central Alabama, round trip to Huntsville via Fort Payne, 3 100-mile legs. I was cautioned not to wander over the Redstone Arsenal outside Huntsville. Cold War-era military remained touchy about atomic research areas. "Shoot you out of the sky," Mac warned me before we set off. He stubbed out his cigar and nodded off in the co-pilot seat. As I approached Fort Payne and centered over the beacon, the tachometer needle danced from one extremity of the dial to the other. I shook Mac awake. "Why's the tach doing that?" "I don't know." He yawned and went back to sleep. I flew on. Coming within range, I radioed Huntsville Tower. A lazy drawl vectored me around the arsenal and reported a Navy jet in the pattern ahead. An edge of disdain in the voice indicated the controller wondered why I was in his airspace and not home fixing supper. I dialed in his coordinates and banked into my first turn. As quick and sure as if it were powered by a rubber band, the plane broke. Its nose jerked up and then slammed back down, clouding the cockpit with cigar ash. The Cessna 150 bucked like a deranged bronco, smashing my teeth together so hard they felt shattered. I screamed, "Mac, what's happening?" He gripped his seat cushion and gave me a blank stare. "Well, what do I do?" "Pray," he gasped, "if you believe in that sort of thing." Then he burst into tears. The seasoned retiree who had logged thousands of hours had never experienced an equipment failure. I grabbed the mic, now dislodged and snaking around the cabin. Huntsville to Tower, this is Cessna 6010 Golf. We have a problem. Well, ma'am, you're not declaring an emergency, are you? Wrestling with the column, I yelled, yes, I declare an emergency. The controller snapped on a different persona. Copy Cessna 6010 Golf. He gave me a straight-in heading directly over the arsenal, adding crisply, I'm moving the jet. Irrationally wondering how much that would cost the Navy, I caught glimpses of the airport when the nose of the plane bucked low. 3 miles out, altitude 18, the controller advised. Crop duster strip east a quarter mile. I couldn't locate it, and Mac was sobbing into his hands. After a pause, the controller added, don't put down in a field, ma'am. They're marshy from rain. We've got some big parking lots. Our designated runway beckoned, but its leading edge dropped off sharply. If we were short, we were dead. I glued my eyes on the call numbers painted near the end, the ones meant to be overflown before touchdown. As Cessna 6010 Golf gulped her last foot of altitude, I held my breath, looked out the left window, and settled her onto the pavement, barely, before ever reaching the big white numbers. The world went so still it was disorienting. Covered head to toe with hives, I planted my feet on solid ground. Thank you, God. Max slammed his door so hard the cockpit rocked. I knew redheads were bad luck, he growled, chomped a cigar, and stalked away. The mechanics who towed the plane said I should have switched off the engine. The last thing I would have done. Rocker arm boss assembly in your number 2 cylinder broke into 8 pieces, they explained. Shook every bolt except one out of your engine mount. Without weight in front, we would have fallen tail down. Thank you again, God. I never flew with Mac again, but I had learned how to land. If you've ever had an experience like that, I'd love to hear about it. Leave me a note in the comments and we'll chat. Thank you.